Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil mursaleen, Sayyidina wa Nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Amma ba'd, a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem, bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Ya ayyuhan nasu ittaqu rabbakum alladhi khalaqakum min nafsin wahida wa khalaqa minha zawjaha wa batha minhuma rijalan kathiran wa nisaa. واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا وقال جل وعلا ومن آياته أن خلقكم من أنفسكم أزواجا لتسكنوا إليها وجعل بينكم مودة ورحمة وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم النكاح من سنتي فمن رغب عن سنتي فليس مني أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم سهل أمورنا وأمور المسلمين في كل مكان يا رب العالمين اللهم ربنا تقبل منا صلاتنا وقيامنا وصالح أعمالنا خالصة لوجهك الكريم يا رب العالمين. Brothers and sisters in Islam, first of all, I'd like to thank you all for staying behind for this halaqa series. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our coming here for His sake alone. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our praying, our good deeds, all our worship which we do for Him Jalla wa ala. Just a quick introduction before we start regarding the 3 weeks which we have planned inshallah. This is a series regarding the issue and the topic of az-zawaj or getting married, marriage in Islam. What we will be discussing very briefly, brothers and sisters in Islam, is that we will be covering the pre-marriage issues, the fiqh, masail, issues during the nikah, the ceremony, and also after marriage, what happens once you get married as a couple. Why we chose this topic, firstly, let me just take a quick survey, and that will probably answer this question why I'm asking you. Why do this topic? I mean, how many brothers here are unmarried? If you just put your hands up. Unmarried, not married. Also, you are married, you're looking for a second. Okay. Make sure your wife is not here then. So we have a few brothers who are unmarried. So this really, this 3-week seminar is for everyone. For those who are married, who want to get married, obviously the first wife, we're not here to condone second marriage or third marriage. This is up to you, inshallah. So we will give, inshallah, some regards to it, because what we are finding, going back to the question that why cover this topic, that we see many day courses happening around the UK, pre-marital courses, yeah. Also we have marriage counselling, which this masjid is involved in marriage counselling. Alhamdulillah, most masajid have these services, but we don't see any in-depth courses regarding before marriage, during marriage, and after marriage. These are the 3 phases which a person goes through as a male and a female. So we thought there was a demand for it, and it was something that will help us, those who are married, and also those who wish to get married. So don't think that we are just focusing on the bachelors. So alhamdulillah, a couple of the issues which we will tackle the first week. So there'll be 3 weeks today, next week, and the following week. So 3 weeks altogether. And in the first week, I would like really just to get one thing clear in our mind, that what is the purpose of getting married? What has the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us about getting married? What's the reason? Number 1. Number 2 is, what is the ruling regarding getting married? Is it sunnah, is it farad, is it wajib, is it mustahab? These are some of the points which we will be looking at, inshallah ta'ala. Following on from that, we will try to cover some of the other rulings regarding to the fiqh of getting married. And then the week 2 and 3, we will focus on when is the best time to get married. Because we have guidelines from the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam when to get married. It's not something which the Quran has left for you to decide. Rather, we have guidelines which guide us towards the best time in our life to get married. The 3rd week and the last week, this is where we'll be getting into the nitty-gritty. of how to select a partner, how to choose a partner. Yeah, selection of a bride or a groom for yourself. Who to marry, as again this is something which the Sunnah has made clear. It has made clear that what you should be looking for in a partner. Following that, in the last week we will go on to the rules regarding how to propose to a brother or a sister, and what are the normal sort of rules and regulations regarding this. Yeah, the issue of free consent, the issue of seeing or looking at the wife or husband, what are the rulings regarding this. And the last part which we will cover in the last week is the types of marriages which Islam prohibits, doesn't allow, it is haram. And we will have some examples of this as well, inshallah. The fourth and fifth week will come, inshallah, in the future. And in that week, we're going to concentrate on the issue of talaq and divorce. But I don't want to scare you off on that note now. Rather, I want to give you the gentle stuff first, then we'll move on into the talaq issue, the inheritance of the children, what happens in the case if the two parties decide to part, and go their own way. So if I ask you this question, brothers and sisters in Islam, what is the purpose of getting married? And what is the first thing that comes to your mind? And I want to volunteer from the audience. Who would actually just answer this with one word? What is the purpose of marriage? Very, very briefly, just simple, nothing too complicated. Anyone wants to give an answer?
Companionship.
Companionship, okay. Yeah, anyone else? Just one more?
Complete your deen. Complete your deen.
Complete your deen, so it's half of your deen. Okay. Anything else, Shahab? You said something?
To save yourself from committing haram.
Sunnah, it is sunnah, mashallah, that's good, yeah. And brother,
To save yourself from committing haram.
okay, very good. And these all come in the guidelines which have been given to us by the Quran. That why do you get married? What's the purpose? Because we think, let's go back. So whatever we just said, let's look at how marriage is seen today in our times, and compare it to what I'm just going to deliver to you in the next 15, 20 minutes. And just compare and contrast at how similar and how different things are. Yeah. So when we get married, the purpose is given to us in the Quran. Allah tells us in the verse which I recited that from amongst His signs is that He has created for you partners, that you may find peace and that you may come together in love and mercy. Yeah, this is one of the reasons Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when Adam alayhi salam was in Jannah. I mean, you're in Jannah, imagine you're in Jannah, you have everything, but yet he was feeling lonely, wasn't he? And Allah knew that in his mind he has this longing for a companion. So he longed for a wife, yeah, for a partner. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he was sleeping one day, Adam alayhi salam. Some narrations, they mention this story, and he was asleep. And when he got up from his sleep, he finds this female, Hawa, next to him. And he's surprised that, and then they have this dialogue between themselves that this is Hawa, this is your wife, and this is where, inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will create human beings, this is where the human race will start from, etc. And this really raises a very important question, which is a current question, regarding the human evolution and where did we come from. And we have it quite clear in the Quran that we came from Adam and Hawa. We didn't come from Adam and Tim and Adam and John, or from apes or from monkeys. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it very clear. We cannot have it clearer than this when He says, Ya ayyuhan nasu inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha. So dhakar and untha means male and female. And when we try to deliver this message, sometimes you might feel that you are, saying something out of this. What is something which is clear? One of the first ayahs which were revealed in Makkah are these ayahs which we see. So male and female is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from day one, from the creation of human beings, He has made it clear to us. That this is the natural way of az-zawaj. And alhamdulillah, Muslims, we are, one of the rights upon us and upon other people is that we deliver this message. Somebody might ask you, what does your Quran say to you, or say to us regarding the creation of humans, the evolution of humans? This is what should be our answer to them, inshallah. So as we mentioned, this is a sunnah, And the Prophet ﷺ mentioned this an-nikahu min sunnati, and I gave this reminder a few weeks ago in a khutbah, that there is no greater warning than when the Prophet ﷺ says to you or to us that whosoever turns away from my sunnah is not from amongst my ummah. Is there anything greater than this? I mean, is there anything more severe than when the Prophet ﷺ basically tells you, go your own way? And this will happen in the Day of Judgment as well. When you go to the Hawd, where the fountain of Kawthar is, the Prophet ﷺ will be calling you, and you'll actually be told to go away. And the reason for that occasion will be that after the Prophet ﷺ left this dunya, you went against his sunnah. You did things out of your own thinking, out of your own hawa. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of Qiyamah, He will disgrace you. And the same way, how the Prophet ﷺ tells us, an-nikahu min sunnati, that the zawaj is from my sunnah, and whosoever turns away from my sunnah, he is not from my ummah. This is really a great word. I want you to keep this in mind throughout this reminder, inshallah ta'ala. Marriage, you know, the fuqaha and the ulama, they differ, but they all have consensus in the general ruling of why to get married. And this ayah which I mentioned earlier, that from his signs is that he created for you mates, partners. And also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made mates for us from our own nature. He's telling us that you are human beings, so the male has a liking for a female, and a female has a liking for a male. So this is something which is natural in our sort of nature. This is something which is natural for us. The Prophet ﷺ, you know, this is warning against bachelorism now. So this is something which I want to stress from the beginning. La rahbaniyata fil Islami. You know, in the past, the Christians, the Jews, they used to think that by remaining, you know, single, it was something good, something liked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when Deen Islam came to complete the other religions, as this is what we tell our brothers, our friends from the other religions, the religion of Islam came to complete your Sharia. So Rahbaniyya was thrown away. There's no Rahbaniyya. So there's nothing, this is something which you must, you know, keep in your mind, that it doesn't make you any closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by staying single. Rather, He encourages you, like the brother mentioned, to complete your half of the deen. The Christians I mentioned have this in their deen, and unfortunately it is rubbing on to the deen of Islam. So we should be very, very careful that we don't take on any traditions, any cultures from their deen, which clearly the Quran has made forbidden. And this is one of those things which subhanahu wa ta'ala He has forbidden. The other hadith which we hear a lot in nikah ceremonies is the hadith about Ya ma'ashar al-shabab man istata' minkum al-ba'a falyatazawwaj. O you young men. So the Prophet ﷺ was addressing the young men. Whosoever is able to get married should get married, for that will help him to lower his gaze and protect his modesty. These are two reasons why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me through His Prophet in the hadith, that it will protect your gaze and it will also guard your modesty, your haya. And as we know, haya is from our iman. You know, haya is something we should all have in our eyes, in our physical beings. You know, we always complain about, that, I cannot control myself, the temptation. This is all something which we need to try to put into our lives, the haya. That doesn't matter who is opposite, standing in front of you, you should look at them as your brother and sister in Islam. Yeah, the haya should come as a second thought. It shouldn't be something which you need to be pondering on. So how we protect ourselves is through the practice of nikah. An-nikah min sunnati. The Prophet ﷺ has ordered us, all of us, male and female, to get married as soon as it is possible. And we will discuss the obligation from the husband towards the wife, and the wife towards the husband later on in our second week. We'll go through the basic needs of the family, what they need, and when it is actually haram for a person to get married. There's a ruling in fiqh which tells a young boy and a young girl that they shouldn't get married, and we'll come to that later on, inshallah wa ta'ala. Moving on, so the ruling is varying between the scholars. It is at least sunnah, if not farad, in certain circumstances. We will discuss those circumstances where it becomes farad after discussing that, the means of and the purpose of zawaj, of marriage. It is a way to guard the family structure. This is really very, very important. We need to take from Deen of Islam, is how much importance it gives to the family, to the husband, the wife, the children, the father, the mother, the cousins, the distant cousins, the grandfather, the grandmother. All these are important aspects of the society. Now, when you take one part of that structure out, either the mother or the father, then it becomes problemsome. It becomes problemsome not just for the family, but rather for the whole community. If you have a structure which is missing the father or the mother, then we see problems. We see problems of single mothers, single fathers even, and it becomes really a burden on the community, it becomes a burden on the society, or even on the state. Yeah, and they cannot really, you cannot bypass the importance, you cannot really underestimate the importance of a mother and a father in any family. So the Prophet ﷺ told us that the nikah is a way to bring families together, not just the couple, rather than both sides. The in-laws also become one family. So most of the time they are not related through blood, but they become family through marriage. This is also one of the objectives of the Sharia, is to bring the families, the community together. The final point is taqwa, the piety. That the nikah, the zawaj, will most definitely bring you this aspect. If it doesn't bring you the other aspects, it will bring you this aspect in your heart, in your life. It will give you peace and security. As is mentioned in that ayah, وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. Love, mercy, compassion He will bring towards you. Between you, He will bring this for you. And when we are going through the nikah ceremony, all the time we recite these ayahs of taqwa, 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 and then we don't really ponder that why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in each instance He is reminding us that be fearful of Him. Be fearful because you have taken a husband or a wife to be your partner, to be your husband and wife for this is really it's more than an agreement. Some people call it an agreement, a partnership. I will say it is more than a partnership. This is a partnership which takes a lot of mercy, a lot of compassion, a lot of give and take. Yeah, and unfortunately we are lacking in sabr, we are lacking in rahmah, and both the husband and the wife end up being the fierce one. So we need, in a relationship, one needs to be the calm factor, and the other can be a bit fierce sometimes. Request, and you'll have these issues in any partnership. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by reminding us of taqwa, of piety, that really becomes the main theme of the marriage. The ayah which I mentioned, Ya ayyuhan nas taqu rabbakum alladhi khalaqakum min nafsin wahida, that all mankind, fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who created you from a single pair, min nafsin wahida. So this is something which we should always remind ourselves. And the ruling of marriage, you may ask yourself that, what are the rulings of the marriage? Has the Quran and the Sunnah given us any guidelines with regards to this? And the answer is that the books of fiqh, they are really filled with the obligations and with the rulings regarding the Sunnah of marriage. But I want to remind myself and all of you of one of the hadith of Al-Imam. He mentions a hadith that one of the brothers mentioned it earlier, that if a Muslim believer, male or female, once he gets married, then he has completed and he has fulfilled half of his religion. But also we forget the other part of this hadith. فَلْيَتَّقِ اللَّهَ فِي النِّصْفِ الْبَاقِ. So fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the other half. So you got married, you've completed this half, but there's also another half. So we are really what's happening, I feel, is we are missing the second part. We think that by getting married, that's enough. Rather, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through His Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in this hadith mentions that fear Him still regarding the other half, the remaining half. So naturally you got married, that would be a first part, but the second half also needs to be completed. And this is what I feel is lacking in a lot of marriages nowadays. So we just take it for granted that we are married now, we don't have to put any more effort. Rather, there is still half of the effort needs to be done. So 50% is completed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you a way out, but you need to do 50% more effort in the remaining half. So keep this in mind always, brothers and sisters in Islam. We move on to the ruling, and this is really interesting because some people think that the nikah, that the marriage is just sunnah. It actually becomes farad in certain circumstances. Is anyone aware of any of these rulings? Just by the way, has anyone come across that when you should get married and when you shouldn't get married? Just anyone? Has anyone heard this? No. Okay. So the opinion of Imam Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah wa ta'ala. We go on to his school. His madhab is actually one of the most comprehensive regarding this chapter, Kitab al-Nikah. Most of his books, of the books which are written on his maslak, they range from about 50 to 100 pages just on this chapter on Kitab al-Nikah, and the slightly bigger books have more bigger chapters on this issue. So it is farad for you to get married. When? When is it farad for you to get married? This is for both man and a woman. It is farad upon them to get married if they fear that they're going to commit zina. Zina is one of the major sins, if not the greatest sins in Islam. Zina. If he or she does not get married and they commit zina, firstly the sin is upon them. And I would say something else as well. If their parents are stopping them from getting married, the sin also falls upon them. If the society also further makes it difficult for youngsters to get married, they're also sinning. So don't just think the sin is on the two couples, it's on the greater society. When there is an Islamic qadi and he is in charge of the affairs and he sees this happening, he has the right to force the society to allow certain couples to get married if they have been prevented. The qadi can actually step in, the mufti at that time. He can make sure, because what we are aiming for, we're aiming for a healthy society. We don't want a society which is sinning, especially a Muslim society. We want a society which is healthy. And how can you be healthy if your iman is healthy? Okay, so the second point, Imam Abu Hanifa, he mentions that you cannot get married, and if you cannot fast, or even if you are fasting, but still this doesn't help to reduce the shahwa, the passion, this does not control his passion. If the fasting helps him, then it's okay. But rather, if the fasting is not having any effect on his shahwa, on his passion, then he must get married. Yeah, he must get married. It's obligatory upon him. And also, we don't, in the past they used to have slave girls. We don't have slave girls anymore. So don't go around having this fatwa that we're allowed to get married with slave girls. We can go around. No, this is not something we have in our current situation. Slave girls are controlled by the hukuma, by the law of the land. It's not a ruling which is left for me and you. No, this is something which is controlled. We should be clear about that. He mentions that if you cannot get married to a slave girl, then you have to get married to a free girl. But this ruling does not apply to you, brothers and sisters in Islam. Okay, so you must get married also if you are able to pay the dowry and you are able to earn a lawful livelihood. Yeah? So if you are able to pay the dowry, the minimum dowry, which ranges anything from £50 up to £500, it's whatever you can afford. People ask what is the Mahr Fatima radiallahu anha. This is something which is quite high. Even if you do £100, £200, it is enough to cover the expenses of the Mahr. If you are not able to earn a livelihood lawfully, then it's not farad upon you to get married. If you are not able to earn a livelihood, it's not farad upon you, then the other rulings come, the sunnah and the wajibat. Then you move on to when the marriage is forbidden for the brothers and sisters. Yeah? You're not allowed to get married in Islam if you're unable to look after the wife. You're unable to maintain the wife first and then any children that come out of the wedding, out of the nikah. Also, it says here that you're not allowed to get married if you suffer an illness which affect your wife, i.e. AIDS, etc., or will affect the progeny. You know, sometimes you have quite a severe illness in the man or the woman. He must make this clear, that I have this illness, and rather he should seek advice that should he get married. Yeah, this is something we need to be very, very clear about. It is not desirable, it is actually makruh for a person to get married if he has no shahwa, no sexual desires, who has no love for children. This is going against the fitrah now. So if someone has this illness in him, that he has no shahwa, don't force him to get married or her to get married. Also, if he has no mawadda, no rahmah for children, then again, there's no need for you to be pushing him. Or who will also, listen to this part, or if he is going to slack in his religious duties due to marriage. Or if you're going to slack in your religious duties due to getting married, it is actually makruh for you to get married. So if you know that by getting married, you will stop coming to the masjid, you will stop fasting, it is actually makruh for you. So bear that in mind. You should try to aim to be better as a person. We move on to the other part of this reminder, which is regarding the sunnah marriage. That when is it healthy for a person to get married? And is there a right time for you to fulfill this sunnah? And I say to you, like most of the scholars, they say that a person, he will know himself or herself when is the right time to get married. Your body will be telling you at a certain age that now is the time for you to get married. Once you pass those years of your life, they will not come back. There will be, once you pass those teens, you are shab, and then you become a young man, those years will not come back to you. So you have to be very, very careful. You have to be honest with yourself. You shouldn't wait for your parents to say to you, son or daughter, now is your time for you to get married. Rather, you are responsible for yourself. We have it in our minds, unfortunately this is a cultural thing, that we think that the parents, so what happens is very, very briefly, that the time of marriage passes, the parent is still waiting for the child to finish, say, degree, master's, PhD, and then they might offer the child, but by then a lot of the damage has already been done. And Allah forbid, if anything haram is committed during those years, the sin, like I mentioned, will be spread on all the community, on the parents, on those who are involved in making it burdensome. We'll come to the issue of the preparation, the walima, how much should we be spending in a nikah. But these are later things. We need to get the foundations right first. We need to get our aqidah, our Islam, our belief regarding marriage straight first, because this is something which I feel we are all lacking. We are all lacking due to the knowledge which we don't have, the knowledge of Islam, the hadith, we hear them all the time, the Quran ayahs, we recite them day in, day out, we read the stories. Now you might hear some stories, some narrations of scholars who never got married. And this is one of them, he's one of them. Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala. It is said he didn't get married. But he had a reason. Does anyone know what the reason was? He's actually wrote a book on Az-Zawaj, Ahkam Az-Zawaj. But he did not get married. Anyone has heard this story from before? that why Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah did not get married. And he died quite young as well. He died late 50s, early 60s. He wasn't that old. It is said that the reason he did not get married, and if you can do this, then you have a reason not to get married. It was said that he would fast most of the days, every other day. He would stay up at night. During the day he would be writing books. He would be debating with people. So all his life he was involved in the teaching and the propagating of this religion. And this scholar, he was a genius. If you read his books, he has written volumes and volumes, 40, 50 volumes of fatawas, of hadith, everything. You know, he was an encyclopedia of Islamic knowledge. Yeah, so he had a reason. He was busy in other things, in other aspects. You know, and if you are in the same situation where you are 24/7 writing books, reading books, busy with your ta'aleem, ta'allum, then you have a reason. But rather anything besides this, if you blame it on the society, which a lot of us do, unfortunately, if you blame it on your parents, which we all do, if you blame it on the income which we are receiving, which we all do, if we blame it on the opposite sex being too picky, which we all do, then we need to find ways to try to combat this menace. And this was really one of the main reasons why we thought we'll have a couple of weeks of reminder, you know, and we go through every aspect bit by bit, because if you give all of it in one go as a whole day seminar, you will forget most of the things. You know, you probably come in from one ear and it will go out through the other ear. So the next week, inshallah, before I finish off for some Q&A and some comments, I just want to go through some final bits with you. I mean, I hope you all understood the part regarding the ruling, because this is the main, this is the cornerstone, this is really the basic for everyone to understand when I should get married. So there's no, I've not given you an age. I've not said to you that you should get married at the age of 25, 23, 22, 20. We all like to quote the hadith or the narration that the Prophet ﷺ got married at the age of 25. But are we like the Prophet ﷺ? That is my question. When someone says that to me, I say to them, are we like the Prophet ﷺ? He was 25 years of age. So you were trying to say that a 25-year-old man or a girl nowadays has the same control, has the same ability to keep herself safe from sinning? This is my question to them. You know, I don't want to answer this question for them, but I just want to give them this food for thoughts. We should ponder upon these things. You know, and each person is different. You know, each Sahabi was different. Jabir, he was different. Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas was different. All the Sahabas, Abu Bakr was different. Umar was different. They all had different characteristics. And the same thing, they had different needs. Yeah. They had different priorities in their lives. You know, some Sahabas were leaders at their time. They were looking after the affairs of Muslims. Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali radiallahu, they all had different abilities and they had different priorities. If our priorities are correct and correctly at the right time, then inshallah, by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your future life as a husband and wife will also be cleansed and cleaned as it's prescribed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What I'm finding, just to finish off on a couple of points, that we are finding the deen is becoming clouded with culture, with society. I mentioned this in the beginning. Our deen is become cultured, it's become more sort of, the youngsters have no really idea what they should be doing before they go to university. And really, my opinion, this is just my opinion, that a boy and a girl should not enter university before they get married. Even if they do nikah and they don't have the means. You know, I was reading a funny, one of the opinions of a scholar, and I don't want to mention it because it actually gives you the wrong impression. And it is sending you towards the wrong goals, the wrong means. You know, instead of giving someone the solution, you're giving them more problems. So you are directing them towards the problems rather than the solution. So this scholar was saying, and I mentioned this earlier, this issue about slave girls. And this is something we must be very, very clear about. This issue only comes into effect when there is a governing system. There's an Islamic system which governs it. So he was saying this, and I really still hold on to this right, that before you indulge, before you take this path into university, you should make it clear with your children that yes, you are going into university. I want to protect you from the external elements. I want to give you this path where you'll be safe. The flip side of that is what will happen is the parents will think of that, but they will do the nikah and then they will not let them live together. So it is a punishment over another punishment. So you've done the nikah, then you're not allowing them to live together or to have a relationship as a husband. So what's the purpose of that relationship? Just to text one another? Is marriage about texting? Rather, we shouldn't be texting our partners. We should be talking to them face to face. I hardly text my wife, very rarely, unless I'm outside. But to text your own wife or your own husband, it means that we are in a big hole, we're in a deep hole, which we should try and leave that. So I think really the ulama, they have said that once a child, a male and a female, has arrived to that age where he or she knows that she must get married. We always, I'm going to cover this in the future reminder, that they're very quick to talk about the age of Aisha, al-Mu'min, radiallahu ta'ala anha. So they're always very quick, and this is something you will hear a lot, and I encourage you, and I advise you not to take any notice of what they are saying, regarding the age of our mother, Ummahat al-Mu'minin, Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. You pick one of the wives out of the 12, which most of them were either divorced or widowed. You pick the one which was married as a virgin. This is something we shouldn't really do. This is really the main problem in marriage we are seeing now, is the constant attack which is being given, and they're doing it on purpose. They are continuously attacking the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In all the attacks, you will see somehow or the other they are aiming for the character, because up to now they cannot even see anything wrong with him alayhi salatu wasalam, but now they are trying to attack his wife. So that's something we shouldn't really take any notice of. I finish off with one last point regarding the next week, inshallah ta'ala, that what we will be covering, if I haven't already covered some of these issues here. Part 2, we will cover the right time when to get married. Okay, we'll actually go through it in detail, because I mentioned the issue of physically being able to get married, and also mentally, financially. How much finance do we need? How much money do we need to have? And how much free time, occupation? All these will be covered next week, inshallah. And I'll also go through the issue of social media, pornography. These are really current issues which we are struggling with, which we are suffering with. Texting, your opposite sex. Why do you want to text them? Texting is no different to actually speaking to the opposite sex, to the male or the female. And we hear from stories from da'is, imams, normal people who have been caught up in this web. They start texting one another. One thing leads to the other. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا. He doesn't say to us, don't commit zina. He says, don't come near to zina. And this is something which I will cover next week, is that how do we stay away from coming close to zina? How do we keep away from the temptations, from the arrows of the shaitan? So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guard us from the trials and tribulations of the shaitan. May He allow us to see what is right as right and what is false as false. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. If there's any